Explosive strength is super important for combat sports. Whether you're throwing a punch or a kick or any kind of strike or shooting a takedown, the more explosive you are, the more dangerous you are. And there's tons of explosive exercises you could do, but a lot of them only advanced lifters should be doing, because if you do them wrong, there's a very good chance you could get hurt. So today I'm just going to share with you 5 of my favorite explosive lifts that are super easy to do, that people who are still newish to lifting can do too. The first exercise is box jumps. This is the first exercise that comes to mind when I think of explosive exercises. Just a very standard exercise people use to develop explosive strength. And once you've done box jumps for a while, there's actually something else that used to be my absolute favorite exercise because it made a noticeable difference in how high I could jump and just overall how explosive I was. And that was weighted box jumps. And there's many ways you could add weight to box jumps. You can wear a weight vest or ankle weights, or you could just hold dumbbells or kettlebells by your side. Another one of my favorites is holding a medicine ball. You could either hold it out like this in front of you, or you could just kind of cradle it by your chest like this. Both are really good. And most gyms don't have this, but if your gym does, it probably means it's a very legit gym. But there's something called a Bulgarian bag. And yeah, you could put that over your shoulders and do jumps with it, and that also works different parts of your body. There's a strength and conditioning coach I follow, Matt Wenning, and he just says the wrong way to do something is the same way every time. And there's many different types of box jumps you could do, but that's for another video. But the one main thing to keep in mind when doing any kind of jump is every time you land, it should be super quiet. Louis Simmons says you should land like a ninja, and no one should be able to hear it, because if you're making a big sound, that's probably putting a lot of stress on your joints and ligaments. So you need to go with the momentum. And that itself will also teach you things like body control, which is also super important for combat sports. Second exercise is hill sprints. Most people think that sprinting or running for combat sports is only for developing cardio, but many boxers and other combat sports athletes do it for more reasons than just that. A big reason is because it teaches your body to produce as much force as fast as possible, and it's one of the best things you could do for that. Also, you don't really need to buy any equipment for it. You just find the hill and run up it as fast as you can. Third thing is broad jumps. Again, this is a lot like box jumps, but instead of going vertically, you go horizontally. And I like box jumps a lot, but this honestly might be better for combat sports because whenever you're shooting a takedown or throwing a punch, you kind of want the power to go more through your opponent instead of just straight up. So these are a great exercise to do. And there's actually a jumping complex that I learned from Daru, another strength and conditioning coach. But it's where you hold dumbbells, and with the dumbbells, you jump as high as possible, and then when you land, you drop the dumbbells and then go into a broad jump. But like I said before, whenever you're doing any kind of jump, make sure to land as quietly as possible, like a ninja, so you don't mess up your knees or anything like that. The fourth thing is kettlebell swings, another great exercise for explosive power. And with these, the technique is fairly easy to learn, but it is mandatory you learn the technique and do the proper technique because it does put your lower back in a slightly precarious position. And just a really good rule of thumb that you should follow is that whenever you're doing any exercise that involves your lower back, you just really need to make sure you do it with proper technique. Of course, you should do every exercise with proper technique, but in my opinion, it's a little bit extra important with exercises involving your lower back, with things like a deadlift or a squat, or in this case, a kettlebell swing. So in the description of this video, I'm going to link a couple of tutorials on how to do a kettlebell swing. And they're going to be people like Pavel Satsulin or Squat University, people I really trust when it comes to the information they give out. Now the last thing is Medball slams. A very simple movement, just pick it up and slam it into the floor as hard as possible. And there's two types of Medball slams that I really like. One is the standard one where you stand with your feet square and just throw the ball. But the other one I really like is when you stand with a split stance and you throw it over your lead leg in a twisting motion. And that just works more of your rotational strength, which is important for all sports, but especially combat sports. So these are my 5 favorite explosive exercises that are also easy to do. But there's 2 things that I need to mention about explosive exercises. Explosive exercises asks a lot from your body and a lot from your central nervous system. So with explosive exercises, you want to make sure you warm up really good. I've seen many of my teammates and my friends do things like pull their hamstrings or tweak their lower backs when doing things like sprinting or explosive lifts in the weight room. And the second thing is just not to overdo it with the explosive exercises. These aren't something you should be doing every single day. You need to give your body time to rest after doing them. But later on in this channel, I'll go into more advanced ways in how to get more explosive, with talking about things like French contrast training or the West Side barbell system, or doing things like Olympic lifts and power cleans, or things like split jerks. But for now, these exercises are more than enough to get more explosive, even for advanced lifters. But if you're new to this channel, my goal is to help athletes and martial artists with their goals, so subscribe if you think this channel could help you. Also, here's another video from me you might find helpful. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.